Welcome to CVR English. This is Naresh Kumar. Let's watch the world news. At his debut appearance at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Elon Musk explained that he expected Tesla's humanoid robots to reach the market by the following year. Addressing a packed hall, he suggested that many people would welcome robots capable of watching over children or caring for pets. Musk also forecasted that within 5 years, artificial intelligence would surpass the collective intelligence of humanity. His remarks highlighted both optimism about technological progress and concerns about the rapid pace of AI development. The statements sparked a debate among attendees about the implications for society, ethics, and the future of work, underscoring Musk's reputation for bold predictions and provocative visions of technology's role in everyday life.
If you have billions of humanoid robots, and I think there will be, I think everyone on Earth is going to have one and going to want one, because who wouldn't want a robot to, assuming it's very safe, watch over your kids, take care of your pet. If you had a robot that could take care of and protect an elderly parent, I think that would be great. That would be an amazing thing to have. By the end of next year, I think we'd be selling humanoid robots to the public. That's when we are confident that it's very high reliability, very high safety, and the range of functionality is also very high. You can basically ask it to do anything you'd like. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but the rate at which AI is progressing, I think we might have AI that is smarter than any human by the end of this year, and I would say no later than next year. Wow. And then probably by 2030 or 2031, call it 5 years from now, AI will be smarter than all of humanity. If you have billions of humanoid robots, and I think there will be, I think everyone on Earth is going to have one and going to want one, because who wouldn't want a robot to, assuming it's very safe, watch over your kids, take care of your pet. If you had a robot that could take care of and protect an elderly parent, I think that would be great. That would be an amazing thing to have. By the end of next year, I think we'd be selling humanoid robots to the public. That's when we are confident that it's very high reliability, very high safety, and the range of functionality.
Officials reported that firefighters from Ukraine's state emergency services were working to extinguish fires in Kyiv after the capital was struck overnight by Russian missiles and drones. It was mentioned that the attacks had caused significant damage, prompting urgent emergency responses across the city. Observers noted that at the same time, negotiators from Russia, Ukraine, and the United States were continuing talks in Abu Dhabi for a second day. The discussions were set to focus on exploring a possible plan to bring an end to the war, which has lasted nearly 4 years. Sources emphasized that the negotiations were considered critical, as the conflict had already inflicted widespread destruction and suffering, making peace efforts increasingly urgent and necessary.
Увага, удар не була над містом. Перебуваємо на місто. Увага, удар не була над містом. Перебуваємо на місто.
It was reported that Alex Honnold, the renowned US climber, had started his ascent of Taipei 101, which is recognized as one of the tallest buildings in the world. Observers mentioned that large crowds had gathered to witness the daring attempt and cheer him on. Sources explained that the 40-year-old athlete was aiming to become the first person to climb the skyscraper in Taiwan's capital without using any rope, harness or safety net. The commentators highlighted that the feat was considered extremely risky, yet it had drawn global attention. It was also noted that the entire challenge was being broadcast live on Netflix, allowing audiences worldwide to follow his progress in real time. It was stated that Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda had welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Vilnius. Observers mentioned that the meeting took place ahead of the commemorations marking the 1863 uprising in Lithuania against the Russian Empire. Sources explained that the event carried symbolic importance as it highlighted both nations' shared history of resistance and their present-day solidarity in the face of external threats. Commentators noted that the gathering was not only ceremonial but also a gesture of political unity, reinforcing Lithuania's support for Ukraine amid ongoing conflict. Reports emphasized that the commemorations were expected to draw attention to historical struggles while underlining the enduring partnership between the two countries in contemporary times.
Maybe today, the first day or yeah. and the non-human disability.
Federal immigration officers have shot and killed a 37-year-old man in Minneapolis on Saturday. Observers mentioned that the incident quickly drew hundreds of protesters into the streets, adding to the tension in a city already unsettled by another fatal shooting that had occurred only weeks earlier. Sources explained that the community's reaction reflected growing frustration and anger over repeated violent encounters, with the demonstrators demanding accountability and justice. Commentators noted that the situation highlighted the ongoing concerns about law enforcement practices and their impact on public trust. Reports emphasized that the protests were both a response to the latest tragedy and a continuation of broader calls for systemic change in policing and immigration enforcement.
Back up! Hey! Back up! Hey!
Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino that an officer had discharged defensive shots after a man carrying a handgun approached agents. Observers mentioned that the individual had violently resisted attempts made to disarm him, which led to the use of force. Sources explained that the confrontation escalated quickly, leaving the officers with little choice but to respond in order to protect themselves and others nearby. Commentators noted that the incident highlighted the dangers faced by law enforcement when dealing with armed suspects. Reports emphasized that the commandant's remarks were intended to clarify the circumstances under which the shots were fired, stressing that the action was taken purely in defense.
Leading the United States Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection. During this operation, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The agents attempted to disarm the individual, but he violently resisted. Fearing for his life and the lives and safety of fellow officers, a Border Patrol agent fired defensive shots. Medics on the scene immediately delivered medical aid to the subject, but the subject was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 loaded magazines and no accessible ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Then, about 200 rioters arrived at the scene and began to obstruct and assault law enforcement. Crowd control measures have been deployed for the safety of the public, of of leading United States Border Patrol and Customs and Border Protection. During this operation, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The agents attempted to disarm the individual, but he violently resisted.
U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem had stated that a man shot dead by a Border Patrol agent in Minneapolis had assaulted officers and arrived armed with a handgun and ammunition. Observers mentioned that Noem characterized the incident as an act of domestic terrorism. Sources explained that her remarks triggered fierce protest and sharp criticism from local leaders, who disputed the federal account of events. Commentators noted that a bystander videos capturing the killing had further fueled public anger. Reports emphasized that the incident had intensified political tensions, raising questions about the use of force and the broader immigration crackdown order by President Donald Trump, which continue to stir controversy nationwide.
At 9:05 a.m. Central Time, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials and officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis against an illegal alien whose criminal history included domestic assault with intentionally inflicting bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement.
Can you offer clarity on
This
where
individual
those were found?
showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officers. They responded according to their training and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him. And I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. This is a violent riot when you have someone showing up with weapons and are using them to assault law enforcement officers.
Because video is meant to leave the scene.
We're continuing to follow the exact same protocols that we always have. And so this investigation is ongoing. We're continuing to gather the facts as they unfold throughout that. And we'll do it just like we did under the entire Trump administration and previous administrations. Nothing has changed, and we'll continue to release details as we have them. But I want you to not distract away from the facts of this situation. Our law enforcement officers were there doing a targeted operation against an individual who was in this country illegally and had a criminal conviction for domestic assault with intent to do bodily harm and other convictions as well. This individual went and impeded their law enforcement operations, attacked those officers, had a weapon on him and dozens of rounds of ammunition, wishing to inflict harm on these officers, coming brandishing like that and impeding their work that they were doing.
Made claims that the individual posed a threat to law enforcement. I guess
That is no claim. It is the facts. The facts of this situation. This individual showed up to a law enforcement operation with a weapon and dozens of rounds of ammunition. He wasn't there to peacefully protest. He was there to perpetuate violence, and he was asked to show up and to continue to resist by a governor who's irresponsible and has a long history of corruption and lying. When you perpetuate violence against a government because of ideological reasons and for reasons to resist and perpetuate violence, that is the definition of domestic terrorism. This individual who came with weapons and ammunition to stop a law enforcement operation of federal law enforcement officers committed an act of domestic terrorism. That's the facts. This is the same protocol we'll always follow. Who would trust Governor Walz at this point? The man has stood up and encouraged resistance. He has refused to partner with us. He's sacrificed his citizens' safety and their well-being by choosing the side of people who break the law and who steal money and who perpetuate violence. He has chosen all of that and backed an administration previously that allowed an invasion of our country. We need to partner with people who truly understand that the law is the law, and in the United States, we will keep people safe.
Domestic terrorists.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had taken a decisive step by appointing Defence Department Chief Greg Moriarty as the new ambassador to the United States. Observers mentioned that Moriarty would replace former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, who was set to leave the position in early March. Sources explained that Rudd's departure came after he faced public criticism from Donald Trump during his tenure. Commentators noted that Moriarty's appointment was seen as a strategic move to strengthen Australia's diplomatic presence in Washington. Reports emphasized that Moriarty would be tasked with managing the sensitive Australia-US relationship and addressing the growing tensions that have emerged in recent times.
I have seen the benefits to the government of tightly coordinated interagency work. Enormous amount of interagency work we did in support of Operation Sovereign Borders. And I think
I have, and I'll be recommending to the Governor-General that Greg Moriarty be Australia's next ambassador to the United States. Mr Moriarty is, I think, an outstanding Australian public servant. He served as an ambassador to Iran and to Indonesia. He's played a role in Papua New Guinea as well. He was appointed the first counter-terrorism czar, if you like, in 2015. He's been a former chief of staff to a Liberal Prime Minister. He has served both Labor and coalition governments, and he's been Secretary of the Department of Defence. And of course the AUKUS relationship is central to our relationship with the United States, and he's in a very strong position to be on top of all of that detail.
Well, that's quite a bit.
No, what we did was I looked towards, it's a decision, it's a prerogative of the Prime Minister. I know Mr Moriarty very well, and I've been impressed by the dignified way in which he handles himself, by his connections in the United States as well. I engaged very broadly in discussions about who the right person was, and
with the Trump administration,
including with the Trump administration, have been consulted on this appointment.
Viktor Orban stated at an anti-war rally in Kaposvar that Europe was no longer merely approaching war, but was already engaged in one. He referred to what he described as a lacquered European Commission document, claiming it outlined up to $1.5 trillion in financial and military support for Ukraine. According to him, the plan included vast reconstruction funds, military spending surpassing $700 billion, and a fast-tracked EU membership for Ukraine by 2027-2028. He criticized President Volodymyr Zelensky, saying Kyiv's tone out toward Hungary was disrespectful despite Hungary's support for refugees and energy supplies. Orban argued that EU summits resembled war councils, warning that Europe faced economic collapse, endless conflict, and loss of sovereignty if Brazil's escalation strategy continued unchecked.
Ugye, ha köt egy szerződést az Európai Unió, mondjuk dél-amerikai élelmiszerek behozataláról Európában, akkor a ma hatályos európai alkotmány szerint erről minden országnak szavaznia kell a saját nemzeti parlamentjében, mondják, ratifikálni kell. Ezt a jogot senki sem veheti el tőlünk. Hogy veszik el ezt a jogot tőlünk? Hogy kitaláltak egy jogszabályt, teljesen ellentétes az uniós alkotmánnyal, amely azt mondja, hogy ez igaz, de amíg ez meg nem történik, addig a bizottság, ez von der Leyen asszonyt jelenti, ideiglenesen hatályba léptetheti a szerződést, amit mi nem hagytunk jóvá. Most ez történt, erről szól a vita, ez a csata zajlik. Mert a bizottság ideiglenesen hatályba akar léptetni egy olyan szerződést, amit nem csak mi nem fogunk megszavazni, de más országok sem. Ilyen rejtett csaták zajlanak Brüsszelben, szerintem van esély az én véleményem szerint, ha a gazdák kiállnak magukért, a brüsszeli politikusok nem olyan bátrak, mint aminek mutatják magukat a sajtótájékoztatókon. Amikor összejönnek a gazdák, akkor meg szoktak hátrálni. Összeurópai gazda összefogás kell, és akkor szerintem az európai gazdákat meg lehet menteni. Oroszország határainál, mert az oroszok erre mindig háborúval fognak reagálni. Ezért kell lenni mindig valaminek, egy ütközőzónának, Oroszország és a nyugat, ideértve Magyarországot is, Magyarország keleti határai között. És arról kellene megegyeznünk, hogy ez a földterület, amit Ukrajnának hívnak, ütközőzóna volt, most háborús övezet lesz, hogyan lesz ismét egy ütköző állam. Békés, fejlődőképes, jobbról-balról befolyásokat elszenvedő, azt a politikájába beépítő, sajátos helyzetű ország. Ezt tudjuk elérni. Ha nem ez lesz, ennek az alternatívája a folyamatos háború. Vagyunk itt sokan, akik házasok vagyunk egy ideje. Én a 40-hez közelítek, az ember megtanulja a házasságban, hogy van olyan, hogy a béke és a békesség fontosabb, mint az igazság. Ez itt a helyzet. Úgyhogy azt javaslom önöknek, hogy most ne az igazságot keressük ebben a konfliktusban, hanem azt keressük, hogy hogyan lehet békét elérni, és a veszedelmeket, amelyek komolyak, a lehető legkisebbre visszavágni. Most ez a nagy összefüggés. Amikor hallanak újsághíreket, hogy biztonsági garanciák innen-onnan, akkor ezt az összefüggést képzeljék maguk elé, ebbe bele tudják helyezni a napi híreket, és akkor minden érthetővé válik, ami talán első pillanatra nem magától értetődő a hírfolyamból. Magyarország. A helyzet az, hogy, mint említettem, a brüsszeli tanácskozásról érkeztem ide önökhöz, ez haditanács. Tehát Brüsszelben ma nem miniszterelnöki csúcsértekezletek vannak, hanem haditanácsok. Ugyanis az Európai Unió vezetői eldöntötték, hogy Oroszországot le fogják győzni egy háborúban az ukrán fronton. Erről döntés van. Itt láttak bevágásokat, mielőtt bejöhettem ide önökhöz, ott láthatták. Kerül, amibe kerül. Olyan hosszú ideig, ameddig szükséges. Fegyver, pénz, sőt most már van aláírt megállapodás, hogyha kell, katonát is küldenek Ukrajnába. Tehát Európa háború